There are creatures on our planet that almost no one knows about, and perhaps that's for the best. They live in those layers of the world where humans almost never look, in the depths where light has never been a guest, underground where space is sensed with the tips of nerves, in dark waters where every shadow seems to possess its own breath. A territory of those who do not care what we look like or what we think of them. A creature that looks like a whetstone and cries like an infant. A predator the length of 2 buses, but consisting of hundreds of beings at once. A fish whose mouth opens like a portal into another world. A creature that can swallow a bat right off a wall, opening its jaws to the size of its own head. And this is only the beginning. Beside them live human hunters, crawling giants, deadly parasites, and beings that do not even have a face, only movement. Today, I will tell you about the most unusual creatures of our planet, not to frighten you, but to show that our world is still capable of astonishing us. So much so that you will remember these stories even after many nights. And before we go any further, allow me to say this quietly and without pressure. If such journeys into the realm of the unknown, speak to you, stay close and subscribe. The stories I tell are best heard with someone who can hear the depth between the lines. If you walk for a long time along a cold mountain river while mist lies over the water like a thin white veil and every step echoes through the wet stones, you may feel a strange presence, not threatening, but foreign. There, in the depth of the transparent waters, lives a creature that seems misplaced between epochs, the Japanese giant salamander. It looks nothing like the animals we are accustomed to. Its body is like a fragment of rock that accidentally came alive. Thick, wrinkled skin covered in patches, as if the river itself tried to hide it beneath its own pattern. It can reach nearly 2 meters in length, as if someone stretched an ordinary salamander to the size of a human, but forgot to explain to it that size changes things. But the most frightening thing is not its size, nor its appearance reminiscent of a wet boulder. It is the sound. This creature can scream like an infant. And for those who lived in the mountains, this was a curse for a long time. People heard the cry of a child among the rocks and rushed to the river, thinking someone was drowning. But no one was drowning. The water was empty, and only years later did they realize the cry belonged to a creature that had survived tens of millions of years, longer than the entire history of humankind. It breathes through its skin. Its movements are slow, soft, carrying the heavy dignity of ancient times. It does not hunt actively, does not attack, does not roar. It simply lies still, as if part of the landscape. And when it finally moves, it seems that the river itself moves with it. Looking at it, a quiet thought arises. If such a form of life has survived to this day, then what else do we owe to the land we walk upon? It is the first whisper of the ancient world, but deeper, farther, colder. There is one who not only lives for centuries, but consists of hundreds of lives at once. It is enough to step away from the shores where one can still feel the ground underfoot and move into waters that become colder and darker, as if someone is breathing from the depths. There, nature stops playing with familiar forms. There, it creates something that is difficult even to call a creature a siphonophore. Imagine a predator longer than a blue whale, not a shark, not a giant squid, not a monster from legends, but a thin living thread, almost invisible, stretching 40, sometimes 50 meters. But the strangest thing is that it is not a single organism, it is many, a colony, an orchestra in which each member is a separate being. Some organisms are responsible for movement, others for catching prey, a third group for digestion, a fourth for reproduction. Each has its own role, its own purpose, its own small life. But together, they form a unity that behaves like a single predator. You look at it and understand this is not a beast. This is a concept of nature, a living principle, as if the ocean decided to create a predator without jaws, without eyes, without a familiar body, but with perfect efficiency. And the most horrifying thing is not its length, it is its touch. Every cell of a siphonophore can paralyze a fish, not by squeezing, not by biting, simply by touching. It is a predator fog, a predator whisper, almost impossible to notice until it is already near. And when you watch that living trail sink into the abyss, you feel something strange, as if in front of you is not an animal, but the ocean's own thought, a thought that has chosen to become a body, so ancient that it no longer needs unity. The salamander seemed like a stone plunged into the past, the siphonophore, a step into the unknown, where the body stops being one and becomes many. Yet the depths contain beings even closer to our primal fear, not huge and not colonial, but those whose very form seems to break the laws of nature. When people speak of arthropods, they usually imagine something small, something one must examine closely to notice. But the coconut crab destroys this idea instantly. It is too large, too strong, and too confident that the night world belongs to it. Imagine a crab that weighs as much as a small dog, climbs trees as if it is part of its daily routine, and effortlessly cracks coconuts with its claw, something a human would need an axe for. This is not a figurative exaggeration. This is fact. Its claws are among the strongest of all land animals and can break not only coconuts, but plastic containers, bones, metal cans, all without a moment's hesitation. But the most terrifying part of the coconut crab begins not with strength, but with behavior. At night, when islands sink into soft darkness, it goes out to hunt. Its steps are heavy, measured, unlike the usual rustling of crabs. It can creep up to bird nests, extend its limbs into branches, and grab prey with dexterity that seems unfit for such a massive body. People who encountered it at night described the same feeling, as if they met not a crab, but something between an animal and a mythological being whose size does not correspond to natural proportions. Coconut crabs are long-lived. They can live 40, 50, even 60 years, and during that time, they learn the territory as if they read it, not with their eyes, but with another sense. They remember paths, smells, food sources, and return to them for years. This makes them not simply strange giants, but beings with frighteningly developed navigation. But what disturbs most is the feeling that there is something too human in the coconut crab. It investigates, it tests, it opens locks and containers. It can hack objects that ordinary animals never approach. Its movements seem deliberate, almost intellectual. And this is precisely what makes you inhale sharply when seeing it up close. It is not merely strong, it understands. Yet, despite its impressive nature, the coconut crab remains a creature of the visible world. It is an embodiment of strength. But the next inhabitant of nature is an embodiment of soft, viscous horror. Horror not from size, but from the structure of the body itself. The farther we moved away from the light, the clearer it became. The ocean hides not just animals, but its own secrets. And if the Siphonophore is a thought stretched across dozens of meters, then deeper we are awaited by something more personal. Not abstract, not extended, not collective. A creature that has eyes, has teeth, and has intention. The deep-sea anglerfish. It lives where the pressure is capable of crushing a submarine and where light disappears forever. In this darkness, one can exist only by becoming a part of the darkness itself. The anglerfish has done exactly that. Its body became a shadow and its head turned into a mouth. A small, almost disproportionate body and monstrously wide jaws filled with long curved teeth like needles that do not fit inside the mouth and stick outward as a warning. But the most horrifying element is not the teeth, not the eyes, and not the size of the mouth. It is the small lamp at the end of the appendage, a bioluminescent lure that it raises in front of itself like a hunter lifting a lantern. This is the only light within kilometers. And every fish attracted into this pure darkness by the tiny spark sees not light, but a mouth. This biological fishing rod is a masterpiece of the deep. Inside it live bacteria capable of producing a faint glow. Scientists still argue whether they were once separate organisms or whether evolution built them into the body of the predator. But the light is only half of the horror. The second half is in the fact that the male anglerfish does not live as an independent creature. He is so small that next to the female he appears to be a parasite. And in a sense, he is one. Having found the female, he bites into her skin, fuses with her body, and becomes part of her organism, a living appendage deprived of his own will. 2 bodies, 1 blood, 1 life. And when you realize that this is not fiction but ordinary deep-sea biology, it becomes clear. The ocean does not simply hide life. It creates versions of life that obey completely different rules. And yet, the depths preserve not only quiet transparency. Sometimes their hides rage, speed, and form so aggressive that it seems they were created not by nature, but by the very idea of attack. If the ocean seems almost calm after the glass worm, a slight change in depth shatters the silence. Not with a cry, not with a flash, but with a movement that breaks the very understanding of form. Among rocks, corals, and dark crevices lives a creature that, at first glance, appears ordinary. A small 20-centimeter fish with a frowning expression and nervous fin flicks. But approach too closely, and the behavior ceases to resemble anything fish-like. This is the moment the creature known as the Fringehead opens its mouth, and it opens not upward, not downward, but sideways, expanding so widely that its head becomes a massive disc painted in bright, unreal colors. Blue-green stripes flare like insect wings. Red and violet streaks form patterns reminiscent of ancient ornamentation. All this happens in a fraction of a second. One moment, a small fish, and then suddenly, a portal that seems to open not into a stomach, but into another dimension. This movement is a demonstration of strength. Not an attack, but a warning. An aggressive gesture evolution has perfected into pure intimidation. Two fringeheads encountering one another may engage in a mouth duel, spreading their jaws wide and pressing them together like shields. These miniature creatures can spend hours doing this, as if ancient spirits resolving a dispute through ritual. Watching it, you understand that fear may lie not only in teeth, not in size, not in the power of a bite. True horror can exist in movement, in seeing a familiar body suddenly unfold into something unimaginable. And if the ocean can perform such a trick with a small fish, what has it prepared next? For deeper still live creatures that do not need light, do not need color, do not need display. They need only speed, venom, and silence in which to hunt. If the ocean hides its monsters in darkness, the land does something else entirely. It allows them to hide right beneath our feet. Among stones, roots, and dry leaves, under the bark of old trees, lives a creature that awakens humanity's most ancient fear. Fear of a fast, unseen, and incredibly intelligent predator. The giant Scolopendra is not just a centipede. It is movement honed by nature into lethal precision. It can reach 30-35 centimeters in length, and each segment of its jointed body moves independently, creating a wave-like, almost liquid stride. Hundreds of legs do not make it clumsy. On the contrary, they transform it into a perfect hunting machine capable of changing direction in an instant or appearing on the ceiling, where it hunts bats, snatching them right out of the air. Its bite is a combination of razor-sharp mandibles and venom that paralyzes prey almost instantly. People who have experienced it say the same thing. The pain feels disproportionate to the creature's size, as if something much larger had delivered the bite. But the most unsettling aspect of the Scolopendra is not its venom, nor its speed. It is its behavior. It is not chaotic. It is not frantic. It moves as if it knows exactly what it's doing, confidently, decisively, with a clear understanding of the space around it. It can evaluate distances, choose a hunting path, and escape threats as if it were thinking. And this sense of intelligence in a creature we are used to calling an insect creates a quiet, deep unease. The Scolopendra is one of those predators whose presence changes the atmosphere of a place. Just as the anglerfish carries darkness with it, the Scolopendra brings an aura of danger, as if you've stepped somewhere you were never meant to be. But there are creatures even more frightening, not because of size, not because of speed, but because of the very concept of their existence. They do not live beside humans, but inside them, and that is the next story. If the giant Scolopendra frightens with speed, the Candiru frightens by not using speed at all. In the rivers of the Amazon lives a creature that cannot be called dangerous by appearance. A tiny, transparent fish only a few centimeters long without a toothy mouth or frightening form. But this is one of those rare cases where fear is born not from shape, but from the principle upon which the body is built. The Candiru is a parasite that seeks not movement, not the smell of blood, not the strength of its victim. It seeks warmth and traces of ammonia, the key markers of a living organism. And when this tiny shadow finds a source of warmth, it does not hesitate. A stream of water, exposed skin, a respiratory opening, it makes no difference. It burrows into the body using its transparency and remains inside, anchoring itself with spines and expanding tissues as if the water itself had decided to become a blade. Contrary to legend, the Candiru does not often encounter humans, but one fact is enough. It is capable of entering a body guided by only two things: warmth and chemical trace. The fear of this fish lies in the fact that it does not strive for aggression. It is not a hunter, not a predator, not a monster of the deep. It is a simple biological mechanism polished by thousands of years of evolution. It does not rage, does not choose, does not attack. It simply follows a signal, and from this it becomes clear. Nature can be terrifying, not because it uses force, but because it does not see differences between organisms. For it, everything is merely biology. After this story, it becomes clear. There exist beings that do not show strength, do not open their jaws, do not move swiftly. Their horror is in stillness, but the natural world can be terrifyingly calm and terrifyingly enormous at the same time. And the next creature is a living example that fear can reach almost a meter in length. Among all the creatures that frighten humans, the most unsettling are those whose forms break the familiar logic. The snake-tailed lizard is one of these. It does not look frightening at first glance. A small body, dry scales, muted coloring, but something ancient emanates from it, almost ritualistic, as if it is not an animal, but a symbol torn from forgotten myths. When hunted, it does something no other creature does. It bites its own tail, curls into a ring, and becomes a spiked living bracelet so dense and rigid that even predators with powerful jaws cannot uncoil it. With each passing second, the ring tightens. The plates on its back close together, forming a single armor, and the body becomes a perfect defensive figure. The very one repeated for millennia in the legends of many cultures, a serpent biting its own tail, the Ouroboros, the symbol of the endless cycle of life. But unlike the symbol, this version is real. It breathes, it lives, and it defends itself not with magic, but with evolution, which has perfected this shape. This lizard can remain in such a pose for a long time, for hours, without loosening its grip. Its muscles are arranged in such a way that the body seems to lock itself, and the strong horn-like plates turn into impenetrable chainmail. And in this moment, it becomes clear. Ancient people did not create their legends out of nothing. They saw such forms which nature itself seemed to use as prototypes for symbols. But the real horror lies not in the defense, but in the absence of direction. Where is its head? Where is its beginning? Where is its end? When it lies curled, this question becomes too direct. The answer is not obvious, and it is precisely this uncertainty that awakens in humans that ancient feeling of anxiety, fear of what does not fit into familiar boundaries. With it, we leave behind the world of predators, parasites, giants, and creatures of the deep, and enter the realm of symbols, because this lizard resembles a sign, a reminder of cycles, of time, of the fact that nature often creates shapes that humans later turn into mythology. And now, looking back, it becomes clear. These were not just strange creatures. They were traces of another world, one that lives underwater, underground, in shadows and depths where humans rarely look. Each of them reminds us, nature does not strive to be understood. It simply exists. And in this simplicity lies all its haunting beauty. They are not monsters. They are reminders of how little we understand about our own world, and if such journeys are close to you, if you want to keep moving toward the place where the familiar ends and the real begins, subscribe and stay close. There are many more stories waiting for their moment, and each one may change how you see the world.